Excuse me while I do some last minute shit. I'm gonna be right with y'all. Nobody on here, so I got time. I got time. Nobody yet. Mm-hmm. All right. That. Just give me, y'all know I ain't never on time for nothing. Oh, cool. That's what's up. Well, all right. We're live. Cool. First off, welcome back to my channel. I'm your boy Eric from AFNB Pictures. I know it's been a while since we did another episode of this. Been dealing with a lot of personal issues in my life, which I'm not going to get into and bore you with. Excuse me, I'm trying to adjust myself. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. Hope you're staying safe, staying healthy, staying hydrated. I definitely hope you're staying hydrated because, man, it is super hot. It has been super hot lately. I mean, it's been bad. So yeah, just definitely make water or Prime or whatever it is you drink. Drink a lot of it. But anyway, tonight's topic is we're going a little bit back to basics. I know the past few videos of Let's Talk that I've been dealing, I've been explaining with more personal issues, with that type of boring shit to most. I'm sorry, I cannot fucking talk right now. Wow. Yeah, it has definitely been a minute since I did this shit. I forgot even some of the topics that we talked about in the last few videos. But none of them really had to do with horror, which is it's been the main focus of this channel. It's been my short horror movies. So I really wanted to get back to that, which what brings me to tonight's topic. I have been debating on what are my favorite horror movies. That's been like the $1 million question, and it's taken me a while to really figure it out. I don't even know if this list is gonna be the permanent list. It might change immediately after I'm done making this video, but regardless, I wanted to talk about my top 5 picks for greatest horror movies ever made. Now, when most people do their picks on it doesn't matter what kind of genre it is, whether it's action or drama, comedy, horror, suspense, what have you, they always have a biased opinion about it. They always base it on what they're looking for in particular, which is exactly what I'm going to do with you tonight. These 5 films are my own personal choices. I am not saying by any means that they are the greatest. There are my picks for what I feel are the greatest horror movies ever made, and they are based off of cultural impact, social commentary, scare factor. It's a combination of just everything. So I'm gonna get straight to it. I'm not gonna bore you. We're gonna go straight to the list. We're gonna go from 5 to 1. So my number 5 pick for greatest horror movie ever made is Get Out. 2017, Jordan Peele's first feature film that he wrote and directed on his own. I remember a buddy of mine shared the trailer for that movie. He sent me the trailer for the movie on Messenger. And at first, I didn't know, after watching it, what it was really gonna be about. I didn't know if this was gonna be a comedy or if it was gonna be a horror movie. Because some parts of it looked funny, some parts of it looked pretty creepy. I didn't know what I was going into, had no idea. And that's what made me more intrigued. Once I went to see it, my mind was completely blown away. This was unlike any horror movie that I'd ever seen. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that said that. Like, people are still not only talking about this movie, but it's been copied. This movie has been copied, parodied. People have tried to do their own versions of it, their own takes on the film. Like, it garnered a new subgenre, and that subgenre is called racial horror, where just black filmmakers have been coming out of the woodwork trying to do these Get Out type films. From Mari Hardwick's movie Spell, with him and Loretta Devine, which is a supernatural type film, which also deal with racial issues. Probably one of the most popular was Antebellum. But we're going to get back to the core, the one that started it all. Get Out was the one that started it all. This movie was so scary in the fact that it was the message that was behind it. This movie is probably one of the greatest examples of like pure, perfect social commentary. The social commentary in this movie, in case you missed it, is very blatant. Like Jordan throws it right in front of your face. The whole concept of the film is based off of the copying of black culture. At least that's what I gathered watching this movie. It is all of that. It's just it's a dark twist on white culture copying black culture. It's no denying that black people, we have been the most copied race, copied culture, from our fashion to the way we talk, to our slang, to our innuendos, to our swag, to the way we dance, to the way, I mean, look, dude, one of the biggest examples, rap music. Super popular. The minute it became super popular, what happened? Everyone tried to take it. Everyone tried to take it. Started with Vanilla Ice. Happily, that failed. Then Eminem came, and now look at him. I'm like, dude, white boy, considered one of the greatest rappers of all time. Now, I have my own opinions on Eminem. I'm going to save that for another video, and I ain't even going to try to get into that because I ain't trying to hurt no feelings. But it's just the way that Jordan did it. He took a real-life cultural issue and added a horror twist to it. Because it really makes you think, what if there was some rich white family out there that had the power to do this? What if they had the ability to do this? Modern science and modern medicine has come very, very, very far. And looking at the characters in the movie, all the black characters that were like possessed, which they really weren't possessed, they were just cerebrally implanted with the brains of older, dead white people that wanted to find a source of immortality. They Case examples. Biggest two biggest examples in the movie are Grandma and Grandpa. Grandma is the black lady with the wig, and she's crying. No, 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 no. Grandma, that's the Armitage grandmother. That's the matriarch of the family, whose brain has been implanted into this black woman. Then you have the dude that's running outside, the grandpa working the yard. That's the grandfather of the family. Then there's Logan King, the black dude that gets kidnapped in the beginning of the movie. Another one. It's another example of that. And it goes from that to when Chris finally gets to the town and he meets the photographer that's like his idol. And he finds out after they kidnap him that this dude wants his eyes. He is a blind artist who wants his eye. This man wants to see. He even says in the scene, I want those eyes. I want those things you see with. And that's when you figure out, it's like, wow, like, this shit is really going on. Like, and it's scary. It's one of those concepts where it's not entirely fictional. It's kind of like The Purge. It's not entirely fictional. Stuff like that can happen. Like I said, modern medicine and modern science have come very far. I mean, laser surgery is at an all-time high. Like, dude, so much shit you can get done. I mean, nowadays you can get it done with a laser. When I was growing up, it was a knife, Novocaine, and you better pray that the shit worked. You know? So Yeah, like dude, there's just the way he did that was so scary. And the movie isn't scary until you actually understand that message. And that message is that a culture can be so copied and so parodied to the point where it can go this far. Now, I know a lot of you probably saying that'll never happen, man. That'll never happen. A lot of people say the purge will never happen. It doesn't matter. Catching you while I'm at work. Hey, what's up? No, what's going on, brother? I was wondering you get on one of my lives, man. Oh, snap. Shout out to American Known Productions, man. Hell yeah, man. It's good to have you on, brother. How you doing tonight? I'm just on here talking about my top 5 picks, greatest horror movies ever made. It's like I told them, I'll tell you, this is just my personal opinion. It's, you ain't got to agree with none of them. Right now, we talking about Get Out. And it took me a few watches to really get creeped out by the concept of this movie. Because, like, the first time I watched it, I found it more comical. I think it was because it was just the excitement of, oh shit, Jordan Peele's got a new movie. Jordan Peele is directing a horror film, which if you've seen Key and Peele, if you watch Key and Peele, you saw this coming. Everyone, go watch any Key and Peele skit. There's always a plot twist at the end of the skit. And just like Get Out, that plot twist, when it hit, bro, it hit. When you find out, I'm sorry, this movie's been out long enough. I'm going to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. When you find out, when Chris goes into her lockbox and he finds all those pictures of all these black people that she done hooked up with and seduced them and brought them to her parents' house for them to brain transplant these people, it's like, yo, that's wild, man. That is just wow. Mind blown. That's probably one of the best plot twists in any horror movie that I've seen since Psycho, man. That's right up there with like Psycho, the last 5 minutes of Saw, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that, to where it's like, holy shit, we were never even in the game. Like, yo, this is some because we all thought like maybe the daughter's not in on it. Maybe it's just I knew the parents was messed up because they told you. But when you find out the daughter's in on it too, it's like, oh damn. Like, all right, now yeah, you might want to get up out of there. And yes, he should have listened to his friend. He should have listened to the TSA boy. He really should have. Come on, like a lot of us really don't listen to our friends. This is what I mean. Like, dude, you got a friend that's down for you, whatever. Listen to him. Because I'd have been the same way. I'm like, man, how long you known this girl, man? You going to her parents' house at a retreat in the middle of nowhere, and you just like, nah, hell nah, man. Damn that, man. Save that for when y'all more serious. Fuck that. But yeah, man, like, dude, it's just, oh god, the way it all plays out, and for it to make that much of a cultural impact, and it really did kickstart that subgenre of racial horror, like Antebellum, Spell, a few others that I can't think of right now because a lot of them are really just kind of falling into the cracks. Lovecraft County, that's another one. Them, which is on Prime. I haven't watched that show. I've heard good things about it. They all kind of just blossomed from Get Out. It started there and then it just kind of expanded. So seeing a film really kickstart I call it Get Out exploitation movies because they all came from that. It's kind of like the Jaws exploitation movies back in the 70s, where after Jaws came out, there's a bunch of animal movies. Like you had Grizzly, Orca, Razorback. All these movies were just animals that was killing people. So I like movies that kind of have that impact, and they kickstart a trend. I've always been fascinated with films like that. But yeah, that's my pick for number 5. Is Get Out. Definitely, if you haven't seen it, you living under a rock, man. You can find it on any streaming platform. It's one of the easiest movies to find. Right up there with Us, Nope. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, I think Get Out is still on Netflix. I could be wrong. I have my own copy of it, so I don't have anything to worry about. But yeah, check it out if you haven't. If you have, let me know if that, post down in the comments if that will be on your list. Or if not, hey, it is what it is. So, moving on to number four. Number four, my number four pick for greatest horror movie ever made is Halloween. Keeping it simple. I'm keeping it real simple. I really don't feel like this is one of those movies where you really don't have to explain why it's one of the greatest horror movies ever made, because it just is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Once again, kickstarting genres. I love movies that kickstart things, that kickstart a new movement. This kickstarted a new movement, probably one of the greatest horror movie movements, the slasher film. It's technically the first slasher film. Now, some people would argue the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the first slasher film. That's debatable depending on how you look at it. Now, they're both, in my opinion, slashers, but Halloween kickstarted the stereotypical slasher movie, like where the killer seems indestructible. The killer seems like he's a force of nature. He doesn't even seem human. Like you shoot him, stab him, burn him, and he just keeps coming. And that started with that. I'm sorry, but it started with Halloween. And to this day, it's still the best depiction of an indestructible force that's just wrecking shop for an hour and a half. And you know what's crazy about it? Unlike a lot of other slasher films that came after it, excuse me, it's not bloody. It's not a violent movie. Halloween is not a very bloody movie. There's like maybe a few blood splat scenes. Like the most violent scenes is when Laurie starts discovering the bodies. Other than that, there's not a lot of gore. And it didn't need to be. It's the atmosphere that John Carpenter put us in for an hour and a half. That's what made it scary. From the opening theme song, which, come on, man, we all have that in the back of our head. We all hum that every now and again when we going somewhere and you driving around in the dark, you gonna hum the Halloween theme song. It's just, come on, man. It's just stuck there. From the music to certain scenes where there's the lack of music, and the certain parts where it's real quiet right before something jump off, to even the beginning where, you find like Michael killed his sister. And then there's the infamous scene. This to me is the scariest scene in this movie. It's the scene where Dr. Loomis explains how he met Michael. Like, I met this boy, like, that is one of the greatest horror movie monologues, if not the greatest that I've ever heard. And to me, that the hype up, the way they hyped up Michael in this movie, that's what made it scary, to the point where is when you saw him coming after Laurie, you were scared for Laurie. When I first watched that movie when I was 8 years old, and I was terrified for Laurie. I'm like, she ain't gonna make it. As a kid, you really convinced, like, this chick ain't gonna make it, man. Jamie Lee Curtis about to die in this shit. It's over. It's game over. Then the ending where, he gets shot and he dives out of the window. And she said, did you get him? Did you get him? And at first you see him laying on the ground. And then that's what we see. Then Loomis looks out of the window and he's gone. Then the music plays and the movie ends. Let me tell you something. They could have ended that movie there and not made any more Halloween sequels, which personally I felt they never should have made any more Michael Myers sequels. They really should have went with Carpenter's original idea, which is making like anthology type movies, because his whole purpose was to make more Halloween movies, but they were all going to be about something different. The first one was about Michael Myers. The second was going to be about something else. That's why I feel a lot of people loved Halloween 3. It's probably the greatest Halloween sequel of all time, which arguably it kind of is. As far as pure cinema, it really is. If you really compare the other sequels to that, none of the other ones hold up. But none of them hold up to the original. Sabbath once said nothing cuts like the original. So, yeah. Like I said, I don't have to get into so much detail as to why this is on the list. This one I feel should be on everybody's list, whether it's your top 5, top 20, top 10, or if it's your number 1. It doesn't matter. This movie at some point in your life scared you. You know it did. You can't even deny it. It scared me. It still scares me. Certain aspects of that movie still scares me. Like, once again, I like when villains are hyped up. I love that. I love hyped up villains. I think that's why I love Negan. Negan is one of the best examples of a hyped up villain. Like, all of season 6 of The Walking Dead, he's hyped. Like, dude, he's just, yo, when they start talking about the saviors, and like, if you read the comics, you know it's coming. And it's like, oh, you can't wait. You can't wait. Then that season finale, when he comes out of that trailer, let me tell you something, man. That's probably one of the best episodes ever. But that's what I'm talking about, man. When you hype up a villain and the villain finally shows up and he doesn't disappoint. Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Thanos, Negan, 4 examples right there of a villain that does not disappoint when he shows up. None of these people that I just mentioned disappointed. Infinity War, did Thanos disappoint when he showed up and whooped the Hulk's ass in 2 minutes? Nope, I think not. That's what I'm talking about. Michael shows up in Halloween. The minute he escapes out of that insane asylum, it's off to the races. Like, my man was just wrecking shop. Like, wrecking shop. And I'm like, dude, this is the perfect, to this day, it's the greatest slasher movie ever made. I mean, you can name me another one. I mean, if you're in the blood and gore, yeah, you're probably not gonna like it. You'll probably like more stuff like Hatchet or Friday the 13th. Not hating on those. Those are all good series, especially Hatchet. I'm sorry, if you're not a Hatchet fan, then we ain't got nothing else to talk about. And if you've never watched it, then go watch it so we can have something to talk about. But yeah, another culturally impacted film. I don't know if those are words, but they're words now. Another film that made a cultural impact, once again. So, Halloween, number 4. That's my number 4 pick. Number 3 on my list is The Witch. I don't know if a lot of you know about this film. Some of you might. Like, the diehard horror fans know about this movie. This was, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was a 2015 horror movie. I'm pretty sure it came out in 2015. It's one of my favorite Robert Eggers films. Robert Eggers is one of my favorite directors of all time. He has grown, and this was the movie that made me fall in love with this man as a filmmaker. Pause. I ain't saying I'm falling in love with people like that, but you know what I'm talking about, man. Don't twist my words. Shut up. But yeah, this movie, oh my God. There's so much. I really do feel like I should make a whole other video about how I feel about this movie. This is one of the scariest supernatural films that I have ever seen. This came out around the same time period because a few years prior, Lords of Salem came out. And they were almost the same movie. Lords of Salem was Rob Zombie's movie. It was about witches. It was about the Salem witch trials. And you know how the main character is a descendant of one of the witches, and they get into that. This one is a folk tale. It's about a 16th century family that gets exiled from their town, their village, and they're forced to live out in the woods. Their baby is abducted by a witch. The baby is killed, it is gutted, it is ripped apart, and I'm not even getting into that much detail, but if you have HBO Max, it's on HBO Max. There are a lot of unsettling scenes in this movie, and you know what I feel makes this movie so scary. A lot of horror movies rely on music. A lot of horror movies rely on scores. Like Wes Craven is a prime example of the stereotypical horror filmmaker, where he relies on sound, sight and sound to scare you. The Witch is the greatest homage to when it takes you back to those 70s type horror movies. This is why the 70s horror movies are some of my favorite horror films. They don't rely on music. The Witch is a prime example of that. There are a lot of scenes in this movie that don't rely on music, but it relies on sight, and what you think you saw is what you really saw, but you kind of feel like you didn't see it, but you actually saw it. And now you can't unsee it. Once you realize what you saw, you can't unsee it. Like the scene with the broomstick in the baby, it's like, oh my god, like and I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, because this movie is one of those where like I go back and I'm always missing something, and it gets scarier every single time I watch it. You want to know how I know it's scary? My mom got me into horror movies. She was the one that got me into horror films. One of the first horror films that she ever let me watch. I'm trying to think, which one was it? I want to say it wasn't The Exorcist. It wasn't that. Um, which one was it? It was a Stephen King movie. Carrie. It was Carrie. That was one of the first ones I watched with her, and I was freaked out. Like, this is a scary movie. As a kid, I didn't get like why she's so angry. When you get older, you understand. But nonetheless, she was the one that got me into these scary. I've seen some scary films that I've been scared by that didn't scare her. This one scared her more than it scared me. To this day, my mom still won't watch The Witch. She's watched it once, and she says she'll never watch it again. If that tells you anything. Okay? This is a woman that introduced me to Caligula, which if you've never watched Caligula, man, I urge you, like, find a copy of that movie, man. Like, Caligula, it's right up there with August Underground, and dog, it's, whew, yeah. Well, maybe not as bad as August Underground, but it's pretty fucking close. But yeah, The Witch, man, it takes everything you think you know about witches, because when you think of witches, of course, you think of old gangly ladies with green faces flying on brooms. It's comical. You know, whether it's the witch from the Wizard of Oz or that old witch lady from the Looney Tunes commercial, that was not the commercial, but the skit, where Bugs Bunny she had him in the pot and he was taking a bath. Like, it's nothing like that. Once you see the witch, dude, you can't unsee the witch. And that ending is one of the most tragic endings in any horror movie that I've ever seen. Like, there's no hope for this family for the entire hour and 50 minutes. There's no hope for this entire family. Once they get exiled and they're out there, you know, and as soon as that baby's gone, it's like, okay, they're screwed. There's no hope. I love movies like that where there's just no hope. And once again, cultural impact. The Witch 2015 kickstarted the uncomfortable horror film genre. I call them uncomfortable horror films because after this came Hereditary. After this came Midsummer. After this came The Lighthouse, Beau's Afraid. I can go down the list of just uncomfortable films, man, that just, and it makes you go back and watch other, because once this movie came out, a lot of people were going back and they were talking about other movies that were very similar to this, where they were very unsettling, like Martyrs or Frontiers. You know what I'm saying? Like foreign cinema, like foreign films did shit like this. American cinema was really not known for disturbing imagery. You usually get stuff like that from European filmmakers. This blew my mind. And it really put those films, it brought those films into the spotlight that they deserve to be in. Like Martyrs, I've always felt that belongs in the spotlight. Audition, another film that belongs in the spotlight. Ichi the Killer, Visitor Q. Dude, I can go down the list of Japanese and European cinema. Any Dario Argento film ever made deserves more spotlight. Lucio Fulci. Like, watching this film made me go back and really appreciate what a lot of those foreign filmmakers were doing, because we have taken a lot from Asian and European cinema. And The Witch is one of those examples of that. And I love Robert Eggers' passion for folk tales, because he created another folk tale in The Northman, which was my favorite film of 2022. And in case you don't know, he is remaking Nosferatu. I'm happily excited. I'm very excited about that, especially after watching Northman and The Witch. I'm like, if anybody can do it, it's him. I don't know if it's going to be a silent film. All I know is that Bill Skarsgård is playing the Count. And, bruh, sign me up. I'm sorry. That boy is a good actor. He is. I'm sorry. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm going to give The Crow a chance. I know I'm going to catch heat on it, but I'm gonna give The Crow a shot. Why not? But The Witch, yeah. Another thing that it introduced us to in that film is Anna Taylor-Joy. Nobody knew who this girl was until this movie came out. Now, this isn't the film that made her famous, unfortunately. The film that made her popular was Split, which she was also amazing in. But I felt she was better in this. These performers are always better when they're young and hungry. In this girl, I'm like, oh yeah, she likes to act. She is a performer. By the way, if anybody's seen Furiosa, let me know how that is, because I've been kind of skeptical. But you know, because I wasn't a big fan of the character from Fury Road. Nothing against Charlize Theron, I just didn't care for her. I felt like that movie had less Mad Max and more side characters, and they're kind of doing it with this, so it's kind of not piquing my interest. But if anyone is seeing it, post your comments. Let me know what you think about it. But The Witch, the acting really drove this movie too, because when the characters were scared, you were scared with them. A lot of horror movies don't know how to do that. They don't know how to really take the fear of the character and, you know, make it lash out to the audience. This film knows how to do that. It definitely does, because when those kids are frightened, when the parents are frightened, it's like I found myself scared with them. Like I was rooting for them through the whole damn movie, and it's just like, well, that after that last 5 minutes, I was like, shit, I guess my prayers didn't even hit the ceiling because they all gone. But yeah, it's a very unsettling film, very unsettling, and once again, it kick-started the unsettling film trend. And a lot of filmmakers are doing that now, and I'm so glad, because I feel like if it weren't for Robert Eggers, I don't think that we would have gotten to appreciate Ari Aster as much as we appreciate that man now. Robert Eggers, Ari Aster, and A24 Studios, Ty West, our last beacon of hope for good cinema. A24 is our last beacon of hope for good cinema. And those names that I just mentioned, representatives of that. They are representatives of that. These guys are the future of horror films. They're practically the future of films. So protect these men at all costs, especially Robert Eggers. Protect them at all costs. Yeah, The Witch, number 3, hands down, man. That's easily one of the scariest movies. I mean, if you've seen it, there's a 99.9% chance that you're going to agree with me. If you haven't seen it, get HBO Max and watch that movie. You will not regret it. If you like being scared, if you like feeling uncomfortable in a movie, like that sense of where it's just dread, you're going to love this movie. So, that was number 3. Number 2 on my list. Once again, I told you, I'm going to keep it kind of simple on this. Number 2 is Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead, I feel, is another movie that should be on everybody's list of top horror films. It's right up there with Halloween. You got shit like Halloween, Alien, Jaws. It's right up there, man. First zombie movie. Some would argue that it was, you know, it was White Zombies. Some would argue that it was I Eat Your Flesh. Some would argue that it was Last Man on Earth. It's easy, but this was the first zombie movie. I'm sorry, I'm not going to argue with any of them. This was the first zombie movie, because after this zombie movie, every other zombie movie tried to copy it, and they all, well, they haven't all failed, but none of them came close to you know, to that. And this was one of the first horror movies. This is one of the first movies, period, that had a predominantly white cast. And this is how you know George Romero had balls, man. This is one of the ballsiest filmmakers. They're like, I know a lot of people that list him as their favorite filmmaker. He is in my Romero. I posted in my other video. He was one of my top 5 favorite filmmakers, horror filmmakers. Here's why, man. 1968. How many black characters were the heroes in thrillers in horror movies in general. I mean, like excluding, you know, Sidney Poitier, because that back then that was kind of all you really had was Sidney Poitier, and they were pushing the boundaries with him. You know, in Heat of the Night, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, what have you. But this was one of the first that the black character was dominating. Ben was dominating through this whole fucking movie. Dwayne Jones, R.I.P. to him, man. Shout out to this man, like, dude. And I didn't know that prior to the acting, like, he was a college professor. That George just plucked up and was like, "Hey, man, you want to be in the..." Like, that's what I'm talking about, dude. Romero gave us so much hope. He gave a lot of us aspiring filmmakers hope that all you need is just a fistful of money, friends, and determination, and you can make a good movie that could change fucking history. Night of the Living Dead changed history, man. And it was controversial for its time. What other film had a dude? The scene where the zombies are like eating, when you find out that like they're eating flesh, you hear it on the radio. You don't think they're going to show it. When they show it, that scene where that truck explodes and it kills Judy and Tom, and you see the zombies just plucking the bodies out and they start eating them. It's that unsettling scene. I wish that I could have been in that drive-in theater in 1968 watching that, man. It's one of those moments in history where you regret not experiencing when it premiered. It's up there, man. Like, it's just, I wish I was a part of that history instead of just watching a rerun of it. Like, I didn't watch this movie until like I was well into my teens, because I watched the remake first, which that scared me more. That one scared me more because it's just both those movies are so hand in hand. You know, Tom Savini's version and George Romero's version are almost damn near the same. Both written by Romero. Fun fact for those who didn't know that, most of you did, but yeah, man, like, dude, it kickstarted the zombie genre. It did. Like, how many other movies came after that? And then there was like the copyright split with Romero and Russo, and Romero kept doing his Dead films, and Russo was doing the Living Dead films. So you had two categories of like just great zombie films. Like, you had a smorgasbord of zombie films that you can just pick off of, and they were all good. They were all good. Night of the Living Dead, dude, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have got my favorite zombie movie, Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is my favorite zombie movie ever made, man. I wouldn't have got it if it wasn't for this. Yeah, and just, it's one, and another thing too, like, it's one of the first horror movies where nobody makes it. Nobody makes it in this motherfucker, and you're rooting for these people the whole time. And that ending, dog, let's talk about that shit, man. Since we on Let's Talk. I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record because a lot of people still complain about this scene. This is the most upsetting scene in any movie. It's the top upsetting scene in horror movies. Ben comes out the basement. He comes out the cellar. You're thinking he survived the night. Here come Redneck. Hey, there's another one. Bam. Kills our hero. That's like Superman saving the world, and then Lex Luthor comes by with a kryptonite bullet and blows the back of his head off, and it's just like, roll credits. I'd never read another comic book again, man. It's like, yo, we went through all this cheering for this nigga, bro, and he dies. But it's so historical. It's so historical, man, because like other horror movies did that, where it's that sense of dread, where nobody's making it, bro. Once again, I love movies like that because in a horrifying situation, more than likely, man, you ain't gonna make it. Zombie apocalypse, a lot of us probably ain't gonna make it. I done heard some shit. That's why I don't like talking about scary movies and shit. I live by myself. Thought I heard a noise. Yeah, I still do that shit. I used to do this as a kid. Sitting watching a movie in the dark and you hear a noise, and bro, I'm almost 40 and I still do that. But Night of the Living Dead. This needs to be on everybody's list. It ain't even up for discussion, man. It's really not. If you don't, if you're a horror movie fan and you ain't got this in your collection, then you're not a horror movie fan. Come on. So before we get to number one, I like to do honorable mentions. So I'm gonna do a couple honorable mentions. First honorable mention is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's definitely up there. That's once again, that's another uncomfortable, just unsettling movie, man. Like it just the last 20 minutes of that movie are just it's just so dreadful, and you, oh my God, you're right in there with Sally's insanity through the whole damn thing, and it's just, if you went through that shit, you go crazy too, because that's some disturbing ass shit, man. Yes, that's an honorable mention. Rosemary's Baby, definitely an honorable mention, and once again, I'm surprised I am on this list because that movie probably scared me more than anything. The first, this is one of the movies where I watched it the first time and I was instantly scared. I watched it when I was, oh, how old was I when I watched it? I think I was 18 years old when I watched that. So I was old enough to understand what was going on. And at that time, I had already decided that I want to get into screenwriting in movies. I just didn't know how to do it. And realizing the concept of this movie, like man sells his wife to the devil to become a famous actor. All you got to do is, hey, let the devil pipe your wife, and she needs to bear a baby. Like, God damn, man. Like, bro, I want to be famous. I want to be acknowledged. But damn, I don't want to be. I don't want to go to that point. I'm not sacrificing the family for that shit. Like that's some raw shit. And when you find out all the tenants of Satanists, it's like, oh god damn, what? And I live in an apartment, so it's like, I mean, I'm cool with my neighbors, but hey, you never know. That's why you just don't eat their food. Just don't eat their cooking. That's all, man. It's Hereditary is an honorable mention. That's definitely an honorable mention. This was the first horror movie to ever give me anxiety through the whole 2 hours. Like I was just unsettled through that whole film. If you ain't never watched Hereditary, man, I think that's also on HBO Max. Go check that out, man. It's an Ari Aster film. So, yeah, that shit is, whew, that is up there. Friday the 13th, another honorable mention. Once again, it's another one that you need to have this on your list. You need to have it. You need to have it in your collection. If you're going to call yourself a horror movie fan, you need to have it in your collection. So, I'm not going to digress too much into that. Those are just a few honorable mentions. I may list some more in the comments. So, having said that, we're going to jump straight to number one. My number one pick, greatest horror movies ever made. This is my number one. Is The Exorcist. Yes, I said it. The Exorcist is my number one pick for greatest horror movie ever made. Not just because the AFI listed as the scariest movie ever made, not because critics listed as the scariest movie ever made. It's because the people, the people, like this is one that has been argued. It's still argued to this day, and it is a prime example of what I'm talking about with movies that are imitated but never duplicated. Imitated but never duplicated. You will never duplicate a film like, man, listen, dog. I first watched this movie when I was 12 years old. At the time, I was not a religious person at all. I wasn't. I mean, you know, we went to church because, you know, we did. Like, I grew up in a Baptist household. Like, my grandmother was, she sang in the Baptist choir. She sang in New Bethel Baptist Church. My mom sang New Bethel Baptist Church. That was our family. We were mostly a Baptist background. But we weren't super religious. We weren't the super Baptist or Christian type, you know. We didn't throw God down. We didn't shove God down people's throats. We never did that. So watching this, it really wasn't as scary as it was when I fully understood the message that it was sending. And I didn't understand that until I got older and I watched it again and I really studied. And this was right around the time where I was like halfway through college. This is before I dropped out of college. I took a religion course, and my professor really dabbled into different types of religion, you know, from Hinduism, Judaism, um, the Muslims, Christianity. We got to talking about the Crusades, and she recommended one of the movies she recommended was Kingdom of Heaven, and it really got me into like studying like Christianity, like and how vicious it was, Catholicism and how vicious it can be. You know what I mean? How vicious religions can be, and how dark the war between good and evil really is. Like the war between good and evil is, yo, that's a deep motherfucker right there. And The Exorcist is a prime example of that. Like, dude, at 12, how old was Reagan? Was she 12 or 14? How old was Reagan? I want to say she was 14. She was a teenager. She was like 13 or 14. And it's just that innocence. And that's the scariest part about it is, actually, that's the second scariest part about it, is the fact that the devil took hold of this young, innocent girl. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, yes, it's terrifying. If you're a parent, if you're a mother or a father, if you have kids, or if you have kids that look up to you, that you love and admire as if they were your own, if you look at it from a parent's perspective, it's one of the most haunting things you will ever see. Imagine being a mother and your daughter just reached that age of innocence and she starts acting like that. You shrug it off at first, because the mom shrugged it off at first. She shrugged it off at first. But then when she realized my daughter's possessed, and she couldn't do shit about it. All her behavior, spitting on the floor, smacking her mom, and she couldn't do anything about it but just sit and watch her daughter downward spiral into hell. That is haunting. And what's even more haunting is this movie's based off of a true story. It's based off of a novel that is based off of a true story. Go on Google and search Roland Doe. Roland Doe. Roland Doe. Doe. Just search that up. If you don't know what I'm talking about. Bruh, that story is damn near as scary as the movie itself. Real talk, man. I can't even make that up. But yeah, and another thing about the movie, there's a lot of subliminal imagery in it. Like, there's certain scenes where it gets the quick flash of like the demon face, which is kind of where I kind of stole that concept from when I made my short film, The Bathroom. If you really watch The Bathroom, there's a lot of scenes in there where I kind of where I do that. And a lot of people watched it and they noticed that I kind of did that because I love imagery. I love that subliminal imagery, whereas you think you saw it, but then you kind of try to tell yourself, I didn't see that. Then you rewind it and you realize, oh, maybe I did. Oh, maybe I didn't. But then you're still confused with what you saw. I love stuff like that. Sometimes that's the scariest shit ever. I forget what filmmaker said it. Sometimes it's what you don't see that's scarier than what you do see. Because if you watch this movie, you really don't see the devil. You don't see him. He's there, but you don't really see him. You kind of get a glimpse in the eyes, but you don't see him. That is haunting. That is some scary shit, man. Like, real talk, man. It really, really is. And that is such a haunting film. Oh my God. Like, I'm starting to get goosebumps because I'm starting to scare myself actually thinking and talking about this shit. So yeah, and it kickstarted a career. Well, kind of. I mean, Linda Blair. I really feel like Linda Blair really should have blew up more. Like, because always felt like she never got outside of that Exorcist typecast. And it's sad because she's a very talented actress. I've seen her in other stuff. It's kind of like Carrie Fisher with Star Wars. These are talented actors. R.I.P. to Carrie Fisher, by the way. These are talented actors, but they never break out of the roles they were typecast in. You know what I mean? Like, we all can't be Harrison Ford with Star Wars, and then he branches out and becomes a box office draw. Or Tom Cruise with Legend, and he breaks out, and now he's one of the biggest action stars, if not the biggest action star of all time. And Linda Blair, unfortunately, did not break out of that typecast. I mean, hell, she came back for Exorcist Believer, which was awful. I'm sorry. This movie was awful. I don't know why they would get the person that ruined the Halloween reboots to do this. Come on, y'all didn't learn from Halloween Kills? The dude, they don't know what they're doing. Like, dog, just no, please. No more. I know they're doing two more, but after that, no more Exorcist movies. We don't need no more. Because the only Exorcist sequel that held its own after the first one was the third one. Exorcist 3 is the best sequel in the whole series. It's not as good as the first one. It's just the best sequel. That's all I'm gonna say. Shit, man, I could talk about that movie all night, but I kind of don't want to because, like I said, I'm gonna start scaring myself. So I'm gonna talk about the good aspects of the movie. Max von Sydow as Father Merrin. Whoever was the makeup artist for that movie, I'm like, dude, this guy never ages. Because when I saw him in Needful Things, he looked the same as he did in The Exorcist. I'm like, how was he 80 back in 1974? Like, and I realized they put the makeup on, like he was super young back then. But he played that part so good, man. Oh, he played that part so good. Stellan Skarsgård did a good job in the prequel. He did. But that's because the Skarsgård family are just great actors. But it wasn't as good as that. That cast, once again, the cast drove this movie. The cast, the plot, and the cultural impact. Let's get back to cultural impact, man. This was the first movie where people was talking about, dude, my mom told me she drove to Cleveland to see this movie. And there were people walking out of the theater, like, halfway through, dog. Like, hold on, computer. No, wait, okay. Thought I had a pop-up. But there were people from everything that I've heard. Once again, this is a part of history that I wish I was a part of, man. I really wish I was a part of this cinematic history. People walking out, passing out in the theaters. You made people faint in the fucking theater, man. You got magic. That's some mad shit, man, dude. Shout out to William Friedkin and William Peter Blatty, the novelist for the book, dude. Talk about cultural impact, man. Like, it's to this day, it's still considered the scariest film of all time. When people say the scariest movie of all time, they always say The Exorcist, and for good reason. And it's another one where you need to have it in your collection. If you're a horror movie fan and you don't have this movie, what are you doing with your life, man? What are you doing? Come on. These are like staples. It's like not having Dracula in your collection or not having Frankenstein or King Kong if you're a fan of monster movies. Come on. Like, I like monster movies, but I don't have Godzilla. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Excuse my friend, but what are you doing? You need that in your collection. It's not, even if you don't like the movie, it's a sign of appreciation. It's appreciation because if it wasn't for films like The Exorcist or The Exorcist, Night of the Living Dead, Halloween, Rosemary's Baby, Dracula, Frankenstein. If it wasn't for these films, you wouldn't get a lot of the new age films that you have today. I'm sorry. Let's keep it a band. You wouldn't. Let's just leave it at that. So this is a film to appreciate more than anything. Even if you don't like it, at least appreciate it. So, those were my top 5. Once again, those are my top 5 picks. If anybody's just tuning in, I had Get Out at number 5, Halloween at number 4, The Witch at number 3, Night of the Living Dead at number 2, and The Exorcist at number 1. Those are my top 5 picks for greatest horror movies ever made. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. At least for the next 2 months until I watch another movie and it ends up being on my list, and my list changed all over again. So don't be surprised if I do another video like this a few months down the road. But yeah, so I'm gonna end it at that. I got a quick workout to get into before I get into some film work. Still got to work on looking at some footage for Channel X, creating some new content. Oh, I have a secondary channel. It is called Eric the Voice. It is a motivational channel where I talk about, you know, motivations with anxiety, motivations with confidence. It's a feel good channel. I try to post positive messages on there. I might start doing workout tips, you know, what have you. But once I'm done with this, posting this video, I'll put the link down in the description. But yeah, so that's my top 5 list. Post comments down below. Let me know what your top 5 list is, if any of these movies are on it. And let me know what you think of my list. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? What have you? Also, if you're new, don't be a stranger. Hit the like and subscribe button. Show you boys some love. Once again, thank you, American Gnome, for hopping on and saying what's up, man. Appreciate you, brother. I'll post the link to his channel as well. He's really been a lot of help with me, and hopefully I've been, you know, trying to share his stuff as well. He was one of the first people to react to one of my short films, and I can't thank him enough for that. Brother, truly, I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm gonna end that video on that note. Loud ass music. That's some loud ass neighbors, man. So once again, hit the like, subscribe, show me some love, post your comments down below. Let me know what you thought. And yeah, that has been episode 9. I know I originally posted it was episode 10, but I kind of jumped the gun. This was episode 9 of Let's Talk. I hope you appreciate it. Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. It's your boy Eric from AFNB Pictures. And always remember, AFNB, always forward, never back. Peace. I ramble.